Hey guys, what's up? It's Kevin for the win, and we're back for another edition of Diablo 3. Took a couple days off from Diablo 3 content. Hope you guys didn't mind. Today on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at the Chantodo Vyr build for the Wizard. Alright, so we're going to be using Vyr's amazing Arcana. 2-piece bonus says Archon gains the effect of every ruin, which is going to be very important for us because it's an Archon build. 4-piece Archon stacks also increase your attack speed, armor, and resistances by 1%. That's going to come in very handy when I show you the attack that you're going to use to abuse that. 6-piece bonus, you gain 1 Archon stack when you hit with an Archon ability, and Archon stacks also reduce damage taken by 15% or 0.15% and have their damage bonus increase to 100%. So we're going to be using, for all intents and purposes, the full set of Vyr here. So as you can see here, we have the whole set. Preferably you want ancient legendary pieces. We're also going to be using Falosi's Improbable Chain. You automatically start with 50 Archon stacks when entering Archon form. We're going to be using for the weapon and offhand Chantodo's Will. 2-piece bonus, every second while Archon form you expel a wave of destruction, dealing 14% weapon damage to enemies within 3 yards. And the damage scales with attack speed. Every time you hit with an Archon damage, you will get increased attack buff as well from this. So keep that in mind. It also reduces the amount of cooldown when you're attacking. So we're going to also be using Squirts Necklace. Basically what this states is when you are standing still, you're going to be doing a bit more damage, but you also will take damage. We're going to be using Halo of Canary. This way we take 78% less damage for 5 seconds after Storm Armor electrocutes an enemy that's more than 15 yards away. This just gives us a little bit more tankiness. Convention Elements, I'm not going to read that off to you. Most of these guys already know what Convention Elements does. It just helps give us extra damage windows with this build, which we need tremendously. So, okay. For the gems, we're going to use Goak of Swiftness, as you saw there. Bane Trap, Bane Stricken. For the skills, Black Hole, Absolute Zero. Arcana Torrent, Static Discharge is what you want to go with that one. Teleport, Safe Passage. That way we're a little bit more tanky. Storm Hour, Power of the Storms. Magic Weapon Deflection, Archon Slow Time. This is one that's going to help you the most. Keep in mind you get all the ruins anyway, but put it on slow time just for the sake of argument. Passives, Evocation, Galvanizing Ward. Also Unstable Anomaly, as you see here. And last but not least, Audacity. In the Kanai's Cube, the Furnace for the weapon, the Swarmy for the basically the weapon armor slot. And then for the ring, I recommend Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac. This is what my Paragon looks like. Obviously, if you're doing this in Season 23, you will have to Paragon farm because you're not going to have those type of levels. Alright, so for the purposes of this showcase, we are going to do, I believe we're going to do a greater of 60, 65, 70, 75. I might do an 80 as well. I just want to show basically how this armor is going to perform from Torment 13 all the way going to basically Torment 15 or 16 difficulty. Keep in mind, the reason I keep these greater rifts lower is because I'm not targeting hardcore Diablo 3 players with my videos. I am doing this for the newer players, preferably those probably who just came over from the many Nintendo Switch sales that they have put for Diablo 3. So this is a good build that will take you to at least Torment 16. The first thing that you are going to want to do when you get into the Greater Rift is automatically cast your Archon Slow Time. This will give you a whole bunch of different skills when you're in Archon form. Mine is basically mapped to activate basically the shield that comes up for Slow Time, which is my X. That's what I have it mapped to. I'm playing on the Nintendo Switch. What you really want to do is basically use that shield and run through enemies in a straight path. Every time you encounter an enemy that's really tanky, start using, well, I have it mapped to the A button, but it's basically drops down your fist and releases like a flame type of attack. This is what you're going to want to use basically to abuse the 6-piece bonus of the Vyr set, in which that you can, the more times you attack, remember you're getting damage reduction, attack speed buff, and on top of that, you're getting cooldown reduction. In order to really maximize the potential of the Chantodo Vyr build, you want to constantly be able to maintain your Archon form, and when you're not in Archon form, you need to be able to get back into the cooldown of Archon. As you can see here, Archon for me is mapped to the Z L button. Again, I am playing on the Nintendo Switch platform, but all this information works for any platform that you are playing on. It's just a matter of where you have mapped your buttons in regards to these skills. So when you're not in basically Archon form, one of the ways that you can get back your cooldown of it very fast, since we are using Goaka Swiftness, is by using our static discharge. We can fire off a whole bunch of those. Usually you'll have to burn through your whole entire meter, and you will be able to maintain the cooldown, or you'll get the cooldown after, obviously, Goak of Swiftness. Now, one of the things in particular with Chantodo Vyr builds is they are very dependent on the type of layout that you encounter in dungeons. Remember, for the most part, although some of the dungeons and their layouts overlap, you really never know exactly which dungeon you are going to be entering when you start a Greater Rift. Primarily, this armor set does not do generally well when it has to deal with corridors where you have to do many twists and turns, where you have to open many doors. The reason for that is you're trying to just speed run through a Greater Rift, basically doing what they call elite pack hunting, which means you're looking for elite packs so that you can just take them out really fast, ignoring most of the lower level mobs so that you could just get to the orbs, get what you want, and get out of there super fast. Now, there is one thing you can do that I did not do because I have not done on this particular account that I'm using for my wizard, buffed up the follower, but what you can do to make it easier in order to encounter elite packs is you can actually equip now items to the follower. Particularly what you want to do is in the Bracer section, equip Nemesis Bracers. What Nemesis Bracers does, thanks to the innate abilities of the followers, is every time that you encounter a pylon and you activate it, it will spawn elite packs for you. So you'll get, basically every time you encounter a pylon and you take out those elite packs, the purple orbs that you need in order to summon the Rift Guardian at the end of a Greater Rift. So that is basically what you would want to equip to your follower. Also, I would recommend Flavor of Time for the necklace. Then, really, when it comes to Greater Rift in general farming, Kane or the Sage set really is not going to have any bearing. Those particular buffs from the innate ability only work in Nephilim Rifts, but you could equip it just so your follower could be a bit more tanky. For the gloves, it's kind of really a toss-up. You could also use Goldskin. It's not really going to help you too much in the long haul, but my recommendation is just get yourself a Flavor of Time and a Nemesis Bracer for your follower. And then whatever are good emanate abilities that you happen to encounter, just throw them on for the sake of argument. But really, you just want to get the Nemesis Bracers and Flavor of Time. And the rest of the thing, followers are good just for the emanate stacks, because it can add more things to your armor set. But it really, outside of that, is not going to do too much. When you get to Rift Guardian, obviously, you're just going to constantly pound down your fist on the ground, and you will take it out super fast. Remember, every time that you're pounding down the fist when you're in Archon form, you're basically taking full advantage of not only the 4-piece bonus, but the 6-piece bonus to the set. For Legendary Gems, my recommendation is Goaka Swiftness, because you need cooldown, and you need to get your Archon's cooldown back up super fast. So this one you definitely cannot ignore. The other one I recommend is Bane of the Trap, because remember, Slow Time is a status effect, as well as the fact that when you level up Slow Time, or not Slow Time, but when you level up Bane of the Trap to level 25, it automatically will have a, I believe it's 25% chance to cast slow, so it automatically will buff itself. And then Bane of the Stricken, obviously, because you're going to be dropping that fist down so many times, preferably on the Rift Guardians, that you just want to get accumulated, stacked damage to be able to handle things. That's my recommendation. That's probably the best way to do it. Alright, this is going to be a Greater Rift 65 to my recollection. In order to basically optimize and maximize your potential in this Greater Rift, you are going to want to drop down the fist quite a bit. This is actually not optimal. We're probably going to take a death here because we ran into an elite pack that is kind of a nuisance. Probably we're just going to ignore them. We're going to use our static discharge to be able to restore the stacks. When you get squashed, in particular with the Chantodo Vyr build, case in point, yet again there, we took a very unfortunate death. Probably should have used more safe passage. You are very vulnerable to Archon stacks cooldown not being active, and you have to constantly wait. Okay, there. We seem to have weathered the storm, so now we are going to teleport around, dropping our hand down and fist whenever we can. Again, this is, once again, a not very optimal dungeon layout to deal with. Primarily, you want to have situations such as this, where you have a lot of mobs on the screen, where you can take full advantage, and then on top of that, then use static discharge to prop the cooldown of your Archon. Again, we're just going to static discharge these enemies. Whenever there's a lot of enemies on the screen, cast a black hole. The black hole will pull enemies towards each chariot and kind of give you a couple of breather seconds where you're not having to deal with so many things swarming you. Okay, back into Archon form we go. We're going to drop our fist down. We implode that elite pack very fast. We're going to teleport around when we see that there is not really too much on the screen. Remember, you have to constantly abuse your Archon attacking abilities in order to really maximize that 6-piece bonus. So kind of learning and timing the windows for Chantodo Vyr is very, very crucial. Ironically, when you're on the lower grade of risks, where there are not as many mobs coming at you, you're actually going to have slower clear times just based on the fact that you have to wait for certain situations to rise. There's not as many mobs, so you're not going to encounter as many elite packs. We're going to teleport around here. Again, this is kind of where the Chantodo Vyr build kind of doesn't shine as greatly, because again, this dungeon layout is kind of very winding road, too many turns, too many twists, and you can't really take full advantage of just plowing through enemies. Again, this gets better as you get higher up in the greater risk, which I will show you. The reason I'm showing you this on the lower ones is so that you kind of know at first how this is going to perform, and then as you get higher on, how it then starts to excel. And it'll make a bit more sense to the newer players as to why this is one of the armors that tends to get extremely high placement on leaderboards. Primarily, when it comes to the wizard class and leaderboard placement for Diablo 3, you will usually encounter Chantodo Vyr at the top of the list. Then you will also encounter usually the Typhon particular set armor, which is the one using the Hydras, particularly Frost Hydra builds, usually the way to go. Firebird is a little bit better than it used to be. Not entirely, you know, S-tier build. S-tier is really Frost Hydra and Chantodo Vyr. Chantodo Vyr is really good for speed farming through things when you have particularly the optimal dungeon layout there. So keep that in mind. Another thing about Chantodo Vyr is that because it is able to speed through things, you can farm our weapons, our gear, our armors pretty well. Again, this is one of these things where it's just an unfortunate dungeon layout, so we're just going to get our cooldown back, which we have obtained. Now we're just going to use slow time, and we're just going to constantly plow through enemies. We don't have to drop the fist particularly on some of these enemies. We just want to save it for the more tanky enemies and the elite packs. Case in point here, we're going to drop the fist down, and automatically it's going to implode most of the mobs. On a good day, this is pretty much what you want to be doing with this particular armor set on a good dungeon run. We have to bring back our cooldown, so what we're going to do is channel some static discharge while keeping an eye on any impairing abilities. Keep in mind that wizards are not a super tanky class, so they are a little bit squishy. Okay, we got our Archon form here, so we're going to teleport to the next available pack. It's really about learning how to elite pack farm. Unfortunately, it looks like by the time I get to some enemies, we're going to be running low on our Archon, so we're just going to constantly drop the fist down. Remember, this is working in conjunction with Goak of Swiftness. If you have a situation such as this where it's a rose, just cast your static discharge, your black hole. Usually you should be able to take down a Rift Guardian on lower levels that way with ease. If you are going against a Rift Guardian that is level 70 or higher, preferably even level 80, and you run out of Archon, chances are going to be in for a very rough and not fun time. So you would probably want to get your distance with a safe passage cast, and then just channel static discharge as well as a black hole, just to get the cooldown so you can go back into Archon form. Alright, so that was actually a greater of 70, my correction. So we did 4 minutes and 56 second clear time there. Pretty impressive. This is not fully optimized armor, keep that in mind, so it has about maybe 1 or 2 augmentations on it. Fully maxed out, you should be able to clear that within 2 seconds. Well, not 2 seconds, but 2 minutes. A little bit of exaggeration on my part. Alright, guys, so same strategy as before. We're on a greater of 70. You're going to cast your Archon, and then you're going to constantly be dropping down your fist. The reason for this is this will maximize your 4-piece And 6-piece bonus, again, when your Archon dissipates, it's a matter of focusing on getting the cooldown back. Again, the best way to do this is to just abuse static discharge and rely on Goak of Swiftness. Now, in terms of optimization for this armor, the first thing you should focus on before anything else is get cooldown wherever possible. So if there is a section where you can get cooldown and you can get it to 8.0%, put all your resources into cooldown. You need cooldown because Archon form is what you need to abuse in this particular armor set. Then subsequently, depending on the stats that you have, and maybe if you got lucky, you got the 8.0s where you're not going to have to reroll any type of stat on it whatsoever, I would then recommend on the helm 6.0 crit hit chance. On the gloves, I would recommend at least an attack speed of 6.0%. Preferably, you want that at 7.0, 8.0. The higher, the better, because it means you could drop the fist down quicker, which is what you would preferably want to see on this build, as well as just the fact that you're going to be using movement speed in terms of your Paragon. You're going to be buffing that up as well. Once you've obviously dumped a lot into your intelligence and your crit hit chance as well for that, and also cooldown reduction. So on the gloves, at least anywhere between 6.0 to 8.0% attack speed. Crit hit damage 50%, crit hit chance 6.0%. Then subsequently, if you still have stats that you haven't rolled, or you just have a good particular armor piece that has a buff to Archon or a buff to static discharge, I would recommend doing at least 15% in either or of those categories. The reason being, it'll just give you a little bit more damage, but primarily cooldown is very important. Now, something you could do, although I'm not going to recommend it, although you could probably get a couple more levels out of your greater rifts, is you could swap out maybe, I would say, the boots and the pants of Chantodo Vyr for a Captain Crimson set. I don't recommend taking out the belt, because if you take out the belt, you will be doing significantly less damage, because you won't be guaranteed the automatic 50 Archon stacks to begin with, because we're using Fazuli's probable chain. So you could do that, and then you could kind of get a little bit more damage out of this armor set, but you have to then, again, invest in cooldown reduction wherever possible to get the attack stat buff. You can do that. My personal preference, I think you could just go straight up Chantodo Vyr, and you should do just fine, especially when you start augmenting your armor. My recommendation is, if you are going to augment your armor, I would start doing it depending on where you are at the game. If you're doing seasonal, probably you'll have to augment your armor at like level 50 gems for now, just to be able to push greater of 70, unless you got like godly rolls and everything is truly optimized in terms of stats, which, remember, you're at the mercy of RNG in regards to that. Could take you anywhere between maybe 2 or 3 hour run to anywhere between a couple of months to get the desired stats that you want on the armor. And even then, you might take you a full year, so it's kind of a mixed bag in that regard. But if you're pushing already higher greater rifts and you're not seeing any problems up until about, let's say, greater rift 80, I would recommend then leveling up your gems to at least 80 or level 100 if possible, and then augmenting your armor there. This is one of those armors that the more augmentations that you have on it, the farther you're going to push and just see better performances out of it in general. So it's definitely something to look into. It's really a matter of your personal preference. As you see, now that we are on higher greater rifts and there are a lot more mobs on screen, we're able to maintain our Archon stacks a lot better. Reason for that is obviously there's more targets to hit, we can drop the fist down, and there's just more elite packs in general. Also, during off-stream, what I did was I actually put a Nemesis Bracer on my follower so that I was able to get extra elite packs to spawn. So I would recommend doing that in particular as soon as possible. You're going to encounter a lot of Nemesis Bracers as you're just farming in general. You need to run the Chantodo weapon set, so keep that in mind. So you need to get the offhand, and you need to get the weapon. For the weapon, obviously, you're going to just want to increase the attack stats, preferably, and look for something that's got at least, hopefully, some cooldown and some good stats in general. Again, it's a matter of what you can find. There will be a link in the description to a sample armor set for those of you who need to see things on paper. I just want to show you how the armor performs, and then you can kind of make up your mind as to if this is something you would like to do. That was a 4-minute clear time. That went by a little too fast because I actually mashed the B button unintentionally. This is a greater riff 80, so this will be able to answer the question of how well does this armor perform on Torment 16 plus difficulty. Now keep in mind, once you get to greater riff 75, you're at Torment 16, but as you go higher up in the greater rifts past Torment 75, 80, 90, 100, you're going to see increased difficulty spikes. The mobs will have a lot more HP. You're going to see elite packs will be able to deal a lot more damage to you. This is when optimization in your armor is going to become crucial. This is where augmentations will come in handy, because you still should be able to handle a greater riff 80, even not fully optimized with Chantodo Vyr, as long as you are taking advantage of the windows super quick. In fact, you shouldn't be able to get squashed. It's just a matter of, remember, getting your Archon always on cooldown as fast as possible. Okay, so we ran our Archon. We're going to do is channel the black hole to pull everything in. Then we're going to cast Static Discharge. Static Discharge, Arcane Torrent will help here because it is basically getting us on cooldown super fast. And since there are a lot of enemies, we get cooldown really fast thanks to Goak of Swiftness. Now, in terms of optimizing for the gems, that's kind of where I'm going to leave it to your own discretion. If you need to be a little bit more tanky, you could basically put a purple gem in your helm. If you just want to get even more cooldown, you could kind of just invest on flawless royal diamonds everywhere that you see. Ideally, in the description, I have the link where it will tell you exactly what gems you want to run. For this one, I kind of did a mixed hodgepodge of getting my intelligence up a little bit higher just so I could perform a little bit better, while also maintaining my cooldown. Now, if I put all topazes on here, I probably could push my attack stat into about the 2,000 range naturally, but I would lose it down on cooldown, and cooldown's important because you need to abuse Archon, so I don't recommend doing that. I recommend just going for royal diamonds, at least maybe 2 in your pants, and then maybe 1 in the helm, and then leave the topaz for your breastplate. That way you will have at least 3 slots of topaz where you get at least a little bit of intelligence boost that way. It's a matter of personal preference and your own playstyles. If you just want to farm on lower levels in season, you could obviously then just switch in royal rubies. That way you could get increased experience points. I don't honestly think you really need to do that. I would say just invest in cooldown with your gem slots for now. Okay, so as you can see here, again, it's a matter of getting back to cooldown. So because of Static Discharge, you see how fast our cooldown on Archon is going. That is thanks to the amount of stacks that we got in Goak Swiftness. Okay, we got our Archon back. So then we're going to go into Archon form, set up the shield very quick, then start running through things. Ideally, you just kind of want to ignore the low-level mobs because the slow time bubble that you're in is going to take out most things, and then just drop a hammer down, basically your arm hand, wherever possible. You're going to time it around, drop a hand every once in a while. When you get to see really tanky mobs, that's where you want to kind of invest you're dropping your hand down. Remember, every time that you drop your hand down while you're in Archon form, you are basically buffing your 6-piece bonus as well as your 4-piece bonus, which is why you kind of need to do that quite a bit, because getting an attack speed buff is important, getting damage reduction is very important, and on top of that, just getting the maximum out of your 6-piece bonus is super important as well. And keep in mind that as you're getting those bonuses as well, you are basically putting stacks on your Goak of Swiftness as well. So it is in your benefit to do all these things in conjunction. Now see Static Discharge there. Again, I have my Archon form back up. I will put the bubble up as you see here, and then I'm going to try to steamroll through the lower level mobs, dropping my hand every once in a while. I'm going to ignore these guys so I can teleport this way. This is probably the best corridor you would want to see with Chantodo Vyr build because it's a straight line of enemies. You could just run through them, steamrolling. Keep in mind, you have to drop your hand down every so often. Okay. So we ran out of Archon. What are we going to do here? Channel the black hole, go Static Discharge. As you see, Static Discharge is filling that cooldown very fast thanks to Goak Swiftness. We got our Archon back up. Bubble mode again. Just breeze through enemies. dropping those Archon skills wherever. You can mix it up. You don't always have to drop the hand, but dropping the hand is probably the fastest attacking thing. As you see here, we're able to clear through a lot of mobs super fast as well. Got through the orbs again. Alright, so we're almost at the Rift Guardian. Now, my recommendation is if you're close to the Rift Guardian, but you're out of Archon, hang back a little bit, take care of a little lower level mobs so that you can get the Archon back on cooldown. You really don't want to fight a Rift Guardian in the high 80s, 90s, 100s, even if you're in 130s, without Archon form available to you because you're just in for a not fun time. We dropped the hand down. And we took care of the elite pack. We're going to teleport over here, drop the hand down a couple of times. It should take us about maybe 10 of these. Remembering a stricken goes off as well. Pops the elite pack, or not really the elite pack, but the greater rip. And we basically taken care of that with general ease. And you saw we got a 4 chance bonus, which means we took no deaths. So ironically, Chantodo Vyr, when you have it fully optimized, actually will perform better on the higher greater rifts where there are a lot more mobs, so you can take full advantage of cooldown as opposed to the lower ones. So on lower greater rifts, maybe you're going to feel a bit underwhelmed, but its true power will really start to shine as you get higher. 75 and up. When it comes to this set armor, as you can see here, we did a 5-minute clear time. Full optimization, you have that down to about 2 to 3 minutes sub. Also depends on your skill level and just dungeon layout and many other things. So keep that in mind. But this is a very good armor. S tier, most people consider it for the wizard class. The other one is the Typhon set. So that's the Frost Hydra build. I have that available in the playlist, so keep that in mind. Anyway, that's going to do it for today's Diablo 3 video. As always, a like and subscribe are greatly appreciated as it helps the channel grow. Until next time.